This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Follow Lead Podcast, the Christian Leaders Podcast, powered by Greg Fay Insurance. If you haven't talked to my man Greg Fay, do so today. Go to gregfayinsurance.com. Today on the podcast, Brett Baker. Brett is this incredible entrepreneur, former Army Ranger, just an incredible guy that started a company designed to help the spouses of soldiers. Hire VAUSA is this beautiful balance of faith, family, and kind of what it means to serve our country. I loved this dialogue with Brett. He's such a great guy. I'm so thankful for his heart. If you like this conversation, do me a favor, let him know that you heard him here on the podcast, and maybe check out Hire VAUSA. Such an incredible organization designed to help folks. So now, without any further ado, here's my conversation with Brett. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited today to have one of my new friends on the podcast, the co-founder of Hire VAUSA, Brett Baker. Brett, thank you so much for taking the time to connect, and special shout out to Corey Swan for connecting us.
I appreciate you having me on. Corey's a great guy. I appreciate that connection as well.
So you have done a lot of things in your life. You have been in the Army. You have started this company. You're a husband. You're a father. I'm curious, from a macro perspective, how would you describe the calling that God has placed on your life?
Yeah, I don't view calling and purpose as one thing. I think there's different facets, like you said, of who we are, and we have a calling and a purpose within each of those. So, my calling as a husband, to be a support system for my wife, to lift her up, to try to help her to be the best version of herself. That's one purpose that drives my life. And then the purpose of raising my children to be critical thinkers and raise them in the faith, raise them with great character. And so, those are two things that I take very seriously, but I consider them different facets of that calling and that purpose. And then this business has given me a totally new purpose of trying to build community and build opportunities to help the people on our team grow and try to pour into their marriages and try to strengthen their faith. I feel very called to try to be the best friend that I can be, which, sometimes it just requires picking up the phone and working on that relationship with people close to you. So I can't say that, there's one thing that is my calling in life. I believe these callings change. I have a different view of what that is today than I did when I was in the military. And I'm happy to continue to refine that and see new opportunities. But I do know that God's calling me to make an impact on those around me. He's calling me to steward my gifts and these opportunities that he's given me to the best of my ability and for the glory of his kingdom. And I feel just a great calling to build community for the people around us. I think it's lacking in so many ways. And when you're running a remote business with people who are naturally kind of isolated because they're living in the military and they're moving around constantly, community is a huge missing piece for them. And it's a challenge to build remotely, but it absolutely can be done. So, I don't have that great one-line sentence that sums up everything, but I am feeling very called to steward what God has given me to have an impact for his kingdom, and try to help everyone around me to be the best versions of themselves.
I love that answer. I'm also curious. You talked a little bit about your business and the importance of building community there. For those that don't know about the work that you do at VAUSA, can you kind of give us the 30,000 viewpoint of what do you do?
So we are a virtual assistant company, or a executive assistant company run remotely. The crux of what we do is support roles, specifically around admin, some marketing support roles, some finance support roles. But we serve business owners, C-level executives, and executive directors of nonprofits. And we're there to help take things off of their plate, get the mental clutter out of their head so that they can focus on the things that only they can do or they love to do. So we're there to free up that mental space and that time for them so that they can go be more impactful in their business. So the labor force that we use is predominantly military spouses, and that's based off our own experience of being in the military and my wife doing this work. But the military spouse unemployment rate's at 21%. So these people are silently serving this country. It's a thankless job. No appreciation is given. Most of them have no idea how tough the life that they're about to enter is. And they really struggle to find work because they're moving constantly. There's gaps in their resumes. A lot of them are starting young families. And this is an opportunity for them to work remotely, most of it part-time. So they're contributing to their family. They have that independence, but they're surrounded by a group of other people who knows exactly what they're going through because we've lived that life. When their spouse is deployed, there's other people's spouses that are deployed. When they're moving across the country, there's other people moving across the country. So there's people around them that actually understand that the life that they're living. And if you haven't walked in those shoes, you really can't understand the challenges that they face. And so we found this business is just a great fit for people in that life situation. And for us, the business is just the vehicle. It's just the starting point. Once they're here, we believe that we've been uniquely positioned to pour into young military families to try to prevent the statistics that we all hear about with the suicide rate and the divorce rate and all the other challenges. We're hoping that if we pour into these people, we try to help them upstream of these issues, that maybe we can prevent just a few divorces, a few families from breaking up, and maybe a few people, their faith will be strengthened and maybe even come to know Christ along the process.
I think that there are a lot of listeners who are leaders that are listening to you and they're like, man, I want to do that in my company too, but it's just so hard. And yet I think about the situation that you're in because, you work from your home, everything is remote. What are some of the keys to casting vision with an entire workforce that doesn't ever really see you in person?
Well, first of all, you do need to make yourself visible. So one of the visibility points that we have is each month, all of the new people get on a call and we talk about our values and we talk about the vision and we talk about the impact we're trying to make. So we want people to know who it is, right? That's casting this vision, that's trying to help build this company alongside of them. But I think one of the misconceptions is that leaders think it's got to be all of them. Like they have to be the ones doing all of these things. Our job is to cast the vision, and our job is to find the right people to put in roles that can support that vision, can run it down all the way to the bottom line. So, a very simple one that we found has been tremendously successful is chaplaincy. Now, chaplaincy can be tricky though, because you can't just hire a chaplain, throw them in there and expect them to do great things with no guidance, right? We have to set the conditions for these things to be successful. So we have an outreach program and we have a person and their whole job is just loving on our team members. They're there to call in when they're sick and checking on how their kids are, help coordinate with the chaplain for doing these Bible studies that we do. And so it's about finding the right people who can take your vision and really champion it. But I do believe it starts with casting a great vision. You need a compelling vision for where you want your company to go. And I believe that companies, their purpose goes beyond their product or service, right? So it is up to that leader to cast that vision. It's up to leader to get inspired on where he wants to take that company. But from there, actually bringing that to fruition requires a team around you, setting the conditions that can kind of breed that success down the line. But absolutely, casting vision is the first aspect of it. And you need to get in front of your people. They need to hear you talk, and they need to understand the vision and where you're trying to take this company. And if you're trying to make an impact, they need to see the impact that's being made as well, not just hear about it.
One of the things that's interesting is that your experience in the military has put you in front of some incredible leaders. I'm wondering if you could kind of share a little bit about your story, getting into the Army, becoming a Ranger, and the impact it had on you as a leader.
Yeah. So I joined after dropping out of college. I was there for about, 6 weeks. And, I had a very troubled youth. My teenage years were very rough. I got in a lot of trouble, kicked out of some schools, got in some trouble with the law. And actually, when I joined the military, my father told me he thought that was the only way I would stay out of prison. So, but I went to college after high school because that's what everyone was doing. And my parents had set aside money for me to do that. They had provided a good life for us. And I went there and I really hated it. I always hated school. And I thought I would enjoy the social dynamic of college. And I didn't like that either. And what I found was I wasn't really going to class. I wasn't applying myself. I was just kind of stuck. I had no purpose. I had no vision for my life. And at some point, I had the first really mature thought I ever remember having. And that was, I've been given this opportunity. I'm not paying for anything. All I have to do is go to class and apply myself. And I'm squandering it. And there's people delivering pizzas to my door who are grinding their way trying to get this degree. And I don't know exactly how the military came into my mind. Obviously God planted that seed. And I never really thought about it before because I have a real problem with authority. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like all of these, strict measures being put on me, but it's exactly what I needed. I needed that very badly. But I was aggressive. I've been angry as long as I can remember. I was confident. And when you have some of these warrior aspects within you and they're looking for a way to come out, there's not many great adventures left out there. There's no continents to go explore. There's no Wild West to go pioneering through. But we were at war, and there is no greater adventure for a young man than going to war. And so when that decision kind of came, when that thought process came to my head, I'm pretty quick about pivoting, and I made the decision and I immediately dropped out of college and I was in basic training just a few months later. And it was it's one of those things that God knew what I needed much more than I did. And I can tell you, my first few years in the military, I needed the military more than the military needed me. And eventually, we got to break even on that. And then I kind of surpassed that, but it was an amazing experience. You see the best leaders you could ever imagine, and you see the worst, and you see them put in the most stressful, chaotic situations. And, I could probably talk a long time about what I took away from the military, other than the evolutions of who I became and the ups and the downs of my faith and, all these things. But for me, the one biggest takeaway is when you do hard things, when you do things that are set up for you to fail and you get to the other side of them, that breeds true confidence. And there's kind of three different avenues that kind of happen in a gunfight. When the bullets start flying, you have people that just freeze. They do nothing. You have people who will willingly go to that gunfire and return fire, but they're kind of a one-person show. They get fixated in their mind. It's just me shooting. I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me. But the good leaders, when all of that chaos is going on, they don't get tunnel vision. They can take themselves off of that gun and they can look around and they can direct people and they can make decisions. And you don't know if you're that type of person until you've been in that situation. And I've seen people I thought were great leaders who, when crap hits the fan, they don't have the ability to rise above it and make these decisions. And in a gunfight, it either happens really fast, it ends, or it becomes very prolonged. And if it becomes prolonged, you have to make complex decisions very quickly, and the cost is very high. And when I had gone through enough of those situations, and I learned that when it gets really tough out here, I can make decisions. I don't shut down. I not only have courage to stick it out in this fight, but I have the ability to rise above it and direct people and make decisions and see things that other people don't. Taking that confidence away, I don't know that it would be a lot to ever shake me from that. I have that to compare to the rest of my life. And, when you've done it, when you've done hard things, and that's why I think it's so important. We live in this nerf world with these bubbles where people don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to protect our kids from failing. But the reality is we need to do hard things, because hard things where we think we could fail or there's a good chance and we succeed, that is true confidence being built. And it starts when you're little too. It's like, let the kid climb on the rock. It's okay if he falls off. because we were meant to do hard and challenging things. And that's my biggest takeaway is I have the confidence in myself to know that if things go really bad, you want me there with you. I'm going to make sound decisions.
Let me ask you this, Brett, because I think that there are a lot of people who are like, yes, and I'm certainly there with you, right? But also at this point in your life, you've got a pretty good setup, right? Like your setup is not going to be the same as your kid's setup, right? And so there's two questions I want to ask. What do you do to help you stay in a habitual mindset of doing hard things? Because life is probably a lot easier now than it ever was in the military. And two, what do you do for the next generation when you've already put all this work in to keep their lives from being as hard as yours were in the first place?
For the first part, life is not easier now. Life is actually very simple in the military. And I think this is why so many folks struggle when they get out, because everything is laid out for you. Now, we do physically and mentally hard things, but I go to work, I have the set schedule, I go to the gym this time, I'm training this time. I know exactly what is expected of me in my job position. I know exactly what's expected of me to get to the next job position. I know everything that people around me are supposed to be doing. When you go into the military, the values, the creeds, all of these things are baked into the cake. And you just have to show up and do what is expected of you. Now, can that be complicated and very hard? Yes, it can. But it's also a simple way of life. And deployments are a great example. Very simple way of life. I wake up, I go to the gym, I go on a target, I come home, we play some video games, some cards, I go to sleep, I do it again, month after month. There's complexity in there, but it's also a very simple thing. And when you get out of the military, one of the big stumbling blocks, I believe, for military veterans when they transition is it doesn't matter what rank you are in the military. Higher guidance comes down and it sets the target. It sets the objective for you. And if you give me or one of my guys an objective, we're expert planners. That's what we've been taught to do. Yeah. But when you get out of the military, nobody's setting those targets for you anymore. You have to figure out what are you going to aim at in your own life. And that can be tough. It can be tough to find that compelling vision for your life. So I don't think that life is easier now. It's easier in some ways and it's much more difficult in other ways. We homeschool our kids. I'm here with my kids all day long. Being a really good father and a husband, that's not an easy thing to do. It's real easy to neglect those things when you're working 60 hours a week in the military and you're gone 6, 7, 8 months out of the year. So I find that there's different challenges that I'm experiencing now. Now, how do I continue to do hard things? Well, some of that I struggle at because I lack self-discipline. But at the same time, this business we're doing, this business that we're trying to steward, I don't find it to be easy. I went from working in this environment that's very physical in nature with all men, a very simple, straightforward mission. I go out and I kill and capture bad guys, to now I'm working inside, making my living through a box with predominantly women in a totally different, realm. And I have found it to be difficult because it is what God has called me to do. I believe that, especially during this period of my life, but it's not always what I want to be doing because I very much I'm a working dog. I'm supposed to be out there working. I'm not a house dog. I'm supposed to be making his living on a computer. So there are different challenges, right? In different aspects of our life. And parenting has always been a challenge for me. I'm not the most patient person. I can be very hard on people. I'm very hard on my children. So I'm experiencing new challenges that I didn't experience before. And I find it to be just as hard, but in a different way. But you still need to continue to push yourself physically. And I think it comes down to what am I trying to accomplish in my life? Setting goals that I can go out there and I can attain and I can crush and I can make an impact. I wasn't trying to make an impact on people in the military. I was doing my job, kind of living for myself. But now it's like every person I interact with, how can I be a blessing to them? How can I be an impact? How can I be someone who drives them to be a better version of themselves? So I don't think it's easier now. I think in many ways it's harder. And I think that's a misconception. Veterans get out and it's like, oh, I'm just going to go I'm just going to go work this 9-to-5 job. It's a difficult in a different way. And I don't remember the second part of your question.
How do you create resiliency in your kids, right? How do you create that tough environment after you've already eliminated so many other of the tough things?
Don't save them all the time, for one. Put responsibility on them. I meet people, I have friends, they're like, yeah, my 16-year-old daughter, she can barely boil a pot of water. She can't cook anything. And I'm like, well, 200 years ago, she would have a family by now running her own household. Your son might be in someone's army right now. I believe that young people are capable of so much more than we're putting on them, and they need responsibility. And I see too many young adults that are trying to avoid responsibility. But those responsibilities that puts weight on us. That gives us meaning in our life. So I think, giving them more responsibilities, and we homeschool. So homeschooling is not public school at home. Our vision of homeschooling, other than their academics, is, are we teaching them how to do life skills like run a home? We do a bit of homesteading, so they're learning to raise animals, some gardening. But when they leave my home, they should be able to run a home themselves. It's not like they go out there and then they learn how to do these things. That responsibility is on us. So I believe in pushing them to have more responsibilities. And animals are a great thing because that life is under their stewardship. If you don't feed and water those chickens, they die.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
So as they get older, we bump up that level of responsibility, and then we push them to do, other hard things. Like my son's in jiu-jitsu, my daughter plays sports. Sports are a great environment for doing physical things and working in a team environment, which can be difficult in itself. But I believe we must be challenging them. And I have some ideas. I do want to kind of create some rites of passage for my children, some check marks along the way in life where, hey, before you say you are a man, these are the things, the experiences I want you to have, and these are the skills that I want you to have before you go into this world. And that's something that's been done in cultures all around the world, and we don't have much of that. And I do think that it will help bring some purpose and some vision to young people's life if they say, hey, these are things that I need to accomplish before I go take on the world, before I go make my mark on the world. And it's our job as parents to prepare them to do that. So I don't know if that answered your question exactly, but I think great. A lot of it comes down to.
I think that's really good. One of the things I hear in your story is a lot of a sense of like, you have a really clear sense of what you stand for. And I deeply appreciate that, both in your business and in your personal life. How do you discern God's voice in your life and in your family's life, as opposed to just, the burrito you ate last night?
That's a great question. The times where I'm hesitant, right, is when I feel like God's calling me to do something and I want to do it. When those two things come together, I really have to stop and think like, all right, is this something God's really putting on my heart? Or is this something that I want to do that I'm kind of rationalizing that it makes sense for God wanting me to fulfill this path? I don't know how great of an answer I have for that. I feel God talking and speaking to me, and I believe he speaks to all of us if we're willing to listen. I've done a much better job since getting out of the military. I have more time to be still, to actually listen to what's going on. Prayer, when I feel God is calling us to do something, 1, prayer. 2, I share it with my wife. This business created a partnership in my marriage that never existed before. We are truly partners and aligned in every aspect of our life. And so we are constantly sharing the visions and ideas God's laying on our heart. And she is very much a check. It's not only a check of, do I think this is what God's calling us to do, but does this opportunity or this path fit in line with our overall vision for our life? Because it is very easy to get distracted by opportunities if you have an abundance mindset. I see opportunity everywhere. It's like, oh, we could go make an impact over here. Oh, we could go make an impact over there. But I can't help everybody everywhere. I have to stay focused on what are the types of people in my life that God's calling me to make an impact, and what are kind of these avenues that are getting me to the goal of where I want to be in my life. And then finding sound guides around us, finding people who are wiser, usually older than you, and have gotten to the places that you're trying to go, and using them and telling them, hey, I have this. This has been playing on my heart for a while. Like, what are your thoughts? What are your experiences? I think we do a poor job in society of gleaning wisdom from our elders. And I think it can be very important if you find those types of elders and you surround yourself in your life with them.
Hey guys, just pausing this conversation with Brett to remind you to check out some of our incredible partners. You've heard me talk about Trent for months now. If you haven't called Trent yet, please do so today. If you're looking for a home, maybe that's your next home, vacation home, forever home, whatever you need, talk to Trent. He wants to help you out, get you settled in. Be sure to check out his YouTube channel. There's a ton of great content there. Now let's finish up this conversation with Brett. When you think about building a team of guys around you today, right? You're multifaceted in the sense that you have your wife who's absolutely your partner, both in business and in life. You have your kids who you're leading. What kind of team development do you do for yourself personally as a high capacity leader?
I think we constantly have to be trying to progress. There's a lot of different ways you can go about that. Information is at our fingertips more than ever before. So reading, podcasting, YouTubing, you name it, it's amazing. One of the few things you can control in your life is your inputs. And it's amazing how much time people spend scrolling Instagram, listening to the radio, whatever it is. Constantly control your inputs. And it doesn't mean you have to be listening to, sermons all the time or whatever it is, but it's like, what areas do I need to strengthen myself in, and go out there and find resources, and more importantly, find people that can pour into those aspects of you. And then we constantly drive people around us to be doing that. So intentional growth is one of our values in our organization. I don't want people to ever be stagnant. I want to continue pushing myself, but a lot of times I just find it so helpful if you can find people to help hold you accountable in your life, because I'm terrible about holding myself accountable. But if I lay it at the feet of my wife or our team, we always have personal personal goals that we're working towards, that we hold each other accountable each week. You have to report on it in the meeting. It's like, did you work out the times you said you were going to work out? No. Now everybody knows it. And so I think, one, having the understanding of yourself, of what areas you need to work on, and then setting a goal for how you're actually going to do that, and then finding someone to help hold you accountable. Because I'm not great at holding myself accountable. I lack a ton of self-discipline. And there's a lot of different groups out there. If you can't do it with your friends, there's peer groups out there you can do it with. I've met a lot of men recently that are leading these men's groups to bring men together to really dive deep on some of these topics and what's going on in their lives. So there's resources out there, but we have to be willing to go out there and actually put in the work. And that's tough for me and a lot of people.
When you guys started this company in 2018, the reality is that I was pre-COVID, so the idea of a virtual assistant was very not done very often, right? Like, it was, I hesitate to use the word revolutionary, but it cutting edge at least, right? Like, so how did you see a market? How did you and your wife see a market for something that wasn't a market yet?
So by no means were we the first, right? So we knew it was being done out there, but yes, there was a lot of explaining to potential clients on how this could work remotely. And it was frustrating at first, but we knew other people were doing it out there. There were other companies that were being successful in it, but honestly, we felt so called to start this that I never really stopped to think about, like, how are we going to find all these clients and how big are we going to be? We set some goals, and when you're first starting a business, in my experience, your goals mean very little because you have no idea what's coming. But what we knew was that being a virtual, my wife was a teacher. Should give you some backstory that maybe help you understand
Sure. Yeah.
where we're coming from. So my wife was an elementary school teacher for 5 years. We were on our, I think, 7th combat deployment. So our life during those periods of time looked like I was gone for about 6 or 7 months out of every year, deployed in training, and she was home holding the family together, very much a single mom, which is a very common experience for military spouses. And we hit this point where both of our young children were in daycare, and her whole teacher's salary was going to pay for that daycare. So she's dropping the kids off before the sun comes up, picking them up after the sun goes down. She's exhausted. She's given everything she has to her classroom. She's feeling like she doesn't have enough to give to the kids, and I'm gone all the time. And she was burnt out. Her room mom was a virtual assistant her last year of teaching. And by the end of the year, she was like, hey, I want to give this a shot, see if it can bring some balance to our lives. So we did. We could always go back to teaching. Brought the kids home from daycare, saved the money there, and she started working with business owners. And it was such a blessing to our family. I mean, there was a palpable difference in my home.
Wow.
And very shortly after doing it, we felt God laid on our hearts like, hey, this will work just like it did for you for other people. And military families out there are struggling. This is a huge issue. And once we identified that, yeah, military spouse unemployment rate, 21%, families are cracking. A lot of people don't realize that these lower enlisted active duty service members are living at the poverty line.
Yeah.
We have people come on our team that are on some sort of federal aid as their husbands are active duty serving this country.
It's insanity to me.
It is. And so there's all these impediments. So we saw this problem and we knew that we had a possible solution. And I didn't know if we could help 10 people or 10,000 people. That didn't matter, to be honest with you, because that's what God called us to do. And when I got out of the military, I wanted to be a business owner because, once again, problem with authority. I don't like being told what to do. I wanted to make or break, by our own efforts, our own minds. So I didn't concern myself that much. And now it was hard. It was hard for a while getting off the ground. And we took on a bunch of clients that we should have never taken on because we just wanted to get in the game. But I didn't stop to think about how is this going to grow? Where are we going to get to? I just knew we can make an impact and we can hopefully have a profitable business. And, it just took off from there. And then God just kept laying on our hearts, hey, you need to do more. This is a great opportunity. I put you in a position to steward human beings. What are you going to do with it? And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, Tony. Business ownership isn't something that I'm incredibly passionate about. Some people are like, all I want to do is run businesses. I'm passionate about our mission because I'm a mission-oriented person. I want people to stand up for. I want a cause to fight for. That is what excites me. That's what gives me purpose in life. And that's what God gave us the opportunity to do. We just had to build it.
Amen. There's a lot of leaders listening right now, and you and I have talked previously. You know that I'm a big fan of of bringing someone on your team to help walk alongside you as the leader. So there's hundreds of leaders listening right now who are stressed out, overworked. They're doing all the things that they shouldn't be doing to keep the organizational running. Why should they consider hiring a virtual assistant?
So that they can stop being all those things you just said. I mean, we have this, I think a lot of us have this vision for what we're going to do when we operate this business. And there's all of these other things that come into play. And in the beginning, we're going to wear lots of hats. But as we scale and we start shedding those hats, the goal is that we move into a place where we're doing the things that we love or the things that only we can do. That's the place I want to be, because you could be good at things, but they're heavy, right? You don't derive energy from them. And that's what causes burnout. When you have all of these things going on that you're not, say, gifted in, or you don't have passion for, a knack for, whatever it is, and they just start mounting up. Example I can give you for myself, man, is if my house is burning down right now and my family's in danger, man, I am cool as a cucumber. You want me there. I'm going to make great decisions. But when I open my email, and there's 500 emails and there's a bunch of to-dos that are pulling me, like that gives me anxiety. And then I stay awake at night wondering like, what is falling through the cracks? What are we missing? And the reality is there's people out there that love doing that. They love all the little details. They will take the thing that gives you angst and they will do it with a servant's heart, and they are thankful for the opportunity. And then that allows me to do the things that only I can do, or the things that I want to do, or it just takes some of the pressure off so that I can be present with my family again. Too many business owners are crushing it in their business, but what's going on with their family? Right? Have you been to your kid's t-ball game? Have you taken your wife on a date? So it will help your business grow. It will help your business become more impactful, and it's going to help you be a better version of who you're trying to be. And that's just, why would you not want to be in that place?
I love it. I actually think when I'm coaching guys and gals, it's one of the most important things that we can begin to do is how do we keep them in their zone of genius? How do we keep them leading in the right capacity? I absolutely love it. And I'm a big fan of using a company like VA USA, because you guys do the vetting, you do the work, you do all the hard stuff that, again, is just stuff that's not most of our sweet spots. So thank you for what you do to support leaders. I know my podcast family loves to pray, and as they pray about what God has called you and your wife to, how should they pray for you?
Yeah, I would say probably two things. We're constantly praying, are we stewarding this thing that God's building correctly? And are we the right people to continue stewarding it? So that is the thing that is always on our minds, because we believe this is a responsibility that God gave us. And when I stand before God one day, he's going to ask me, what did you do with these things that I gave you? And I want to know that I gave it my all, and that I tried to steward things for the greater good of his kingdom. And the other thing is, we just have so many families that we are serving on our team, and life is tough. I mean, life is very tough for these military families. There's a reason that the divorce rate's high and the suicide rate's high. There are so many challenges that they're facing. And so pray for those people. And, I tell you, the next time you meet a service member and you thank him for a service, which I think is a beautiful thing to do, his spouses or her spouse is standing there, thank that spouse as well. Because I can tell you right now, man, if my wife hadn't been the rock of our family holding it all together, I would have been a mess all of those years, and our marriage would have ended up like many others. So pray not just for our service members, but pray for their families that are holding it all together, that are silently serving this country, because it is well deserved.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I have one more question for you, but before I ask it, I know that my podcast family is going to want to connect with you all over the interwebs. Where is the best place to learn all things Brett?
I guess all things, not many places, thankfully. I have a LinkedIn. That's the only social media I really communicate on. And I'm not here for people to learn about me. Love for you to go to our website, hirevausa.com, HIREVAUSA.com, because none of this is about me. It's about the people we're trying to have an impact on. So you can learn all about our business there. Our business has all the normal social media channels. But this has absolutely nothing to do with me, brother. Nothing.
I love it. Okay, last question I love to ask people. It's an advice question. Invite you to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, except I get to name the season of life that you're in. And I want to take you back to the day after your wedding. You just celebrated with all of your friends and family. You have a beautiful blushing bride. The whole world is in front of you. If you're going to sit down knee to knee with that younger version of yourself, look him in the eyes and give him one piece of advice on the journey he's about to go on, what are you going to tell him?
It's a great question. I feel like you should have told me that before I got here so I could have a better answer.
I love the spontaneity of the question, though. And I happen to know for a fact you're good under pressure.
Yeah, I think I would give the same answer that I try to kind of harp on when I talk to younger guys now is the most important thing you can do in your life is serve others. It's the most important thing. It's the one thing that is going to bring true joy and contentment to your life. And I believe it's the thing that God put you on this earth to do. And if we look through a lens of service in every day in our life, in all aspects of our life, we can have a profound impact. And we will see these opportunities to pour into other human beings. But if we don't actively think and live in that context, then all these opportunities are going to pass us by where we could have been a blessing. We could have been a light for someone else's life. And many people think that they don't have that much to give, but you do. You have a lot to give. And the things that maybe you struggled with in your life or your failures, those are the things that qualify you to pour into other people who go through these circumstances. And I did not look, I just didn't look through a lens of service to other people for most of my life. I wasn't trying to hurt people, but I was living for Brett. And since switching that mindset, it's given so much meaning to my life. And I think it's one of the most overlooked thing for human beings is we're trying to figure out like, how am I going to get to where I want to go? And how am I pouring into myself and self-development and all of these things? And the reality, I believe, is that if you want to fill your cup, pour into somebody else's. So I would tell that young man, I would say, your family and everyone else around you, you need to be constantly looking for ways of how you are going to serve others and be a positive impact on their life.
Amen. Amen. Brett, thank you so much for what you do for leaders, for your service and your family service to the country. And just really appreciate the opportunity to connect. And I hope we stay connected as we both continue to lean in to what growth looks like in our life.
Absolutely. And thank you for this opportunity and for this platform and the work that you do, because I know you have devoted yourself into pouring into leaders and kind of multiple avenues. And, I thank you for following the calling that God put on your heart. It's very much needed. And I think we're right there aligned with how we're trying to make impact in our life. It's important.
What a great conversation. I love his heart. I love his heart for our country and for serving others and what it means to build a kingdom workplace. Do me a favor, let Brett know that you heard him here on the podcast. And if there's anything I can do to help you get connected to him over at hirevausa.com, please don't hesitate to let me know. As always, I'm forever thankful for you and the opportunity that we have to connect. If you need anything from me, embarrassingly easy to find at TWMilt on Instagram or follow the number 2leadcoaching.com. And remember, guys, if you want to follow Jesus, you must be willing to move.